Welcome to History Beyond Sleep, where we uncover the secrets the textbooks tried to hide.
The earth is patient. She holds her breath for centuries, cradling secrets beneath stone and shadow, waiting for soft footsteps, for someone willing to listen rather than take. Tonight, you are that listener, and the secret is buried deep beneath. A weathered tomb, one whose markings have faded under wind and moss, but whose silence still speaks to those who dream with open hearts. They say that, in the year of our Lord 1314, as twilight descended over the Isle de la Cite in Paris, a man was led to fire. Not just a man, a grand master, the last of a brotherhood that once rivaled kings. Jacques de Molay, he stood upon a pyre, bound and betrayed, his eyes not of fear, but of fury, or perhaps knowing, for as the flames climbed and the crowd fell silent, he did not beg. He whispered. What did he say in that final moment? A curse on those who condemned him? A prayer to a forgotten God? Or a secret passed only to time itself? Centuries later, the ruins of that moment remain, not just in Parisian stone, but in books half burnt, in maps half erased, in myths half believed. But tonight we begin not with the grand fire, but with a quieter grave, a tomb weathered by centuries, hidden in a small European chapel, whose name is lost to most. A knight lies there, unnamed. No gilded sarcophagus, no royal heraldry. Only a cross of 8 points, faint and eroded, etched into time-worn stone. Some say this was the last true Templar. Not de Molay, not the ones arrested and tortured, but one who vanished, who carried the final charge, and took the last secret with him beneath the soil. Beneath that stone, if legend holds, is not just a body, but a memory sealed in silence. A scroll, perhaps written in cipher, a relic one too dangerous to destroy, or simply a truth so devastating it had to be buried. Not to hide, but to protect, because the Templars were not just soldiers. They were archivists, guardians, and perhaps, if whispers are true truth-bearers of something older than any church, any king, any scripture written in ink, the room where the tomb lies is cold. Still, stone walls rise around it, each block placed by hands now of dust. A single window lets in moonlight, silver as a sword, soft as breath. Dust motes drift like forgotten thoughts. Candles flicker in eternal vigil, their wax pooling like melted time. You stand here with me. You kneel at the tomb and press your hand to its surface. It's cold, but not empty. There's something here, a whisper, not in sound, but in presence. Historians argue. Some dismiss the tomb as coincidence. Others obsess over clues, the symmetry of the chapel, the orientation of the cross, the inscriptions in Latin that translate to little, but feel like everything. In tenebris, lux. In darkness, light dot. It is a phrase found often in Templar texts. A contradiction or a clue. What if the secrets buried here were never meant to be found by force or greed, but through reverence? And rest, you see, the Templars did not fear death. They prepared for it from the day they took their vows. To die in silence, to die in service, was not a loss, but a return dot. So perhaps the last Templar chose to vanish, to remove himself from history's grasp, and bury the truth where only silence could reach it, dot. Not in a vault, not in a tower, but in a grave no one would seek, except in dreams, dot. And so we begin our journey here, not with a riddle to solve, but a whisper to follow. This is not a treasure hunt, but a pilgrimage. We will trace the order from its birth beneath Jerusalem's sun to its fall beneath the Parisian moon. We will unravel the myths, sift truth from symbol, and drift through the centuries on the tide of stories told only in shadow. But for now, rest your thoughts beside the tomb. Let the hush of old stone calm your breath. The secrets will come, not with noise, but with patience. Like the night buried here, we begin in stillness, for in the softest places, the truth waits. They came not from legend, but from need. Born in dust, baptized in battle, the first Templars were not yet symbols, they were shields, guardians of pilgrims, keepers of roads. Their swords rang not for conquest, but protection. Or so the story goes, but history often wears a borrowed mask. The year was 1119. Jerusalem had been taken by Crusaders 2 decades prior, and the Holy Land, though claimed, was not calm. Bandits haunted the roads. Heretics, rebels, and shadows lingered at the edges of Christendom's fragile grip. It was here, in this brittle balance between war and worship, that a French knight named Hugues de Payens gathered 8 companions and offered themselves to God and to the road. They vowed poverty, chastity, obedience, but they also vowed to guard, not cities or crowns, but pilgrims, the humble, the hopeful, the faithful. The church was intrigued. 8 knights without wealth, offering their swords to the soul of Christendom. They were granted quarters atop the Temple Mount, a place once sacred to Jews, then Muslims, now Christians. The Templum Salomonis, the Temple of Solomon. And from that hallowed foundation they took their name, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ, and of the Temple of Solomon, or as history would remember them, the Knights Templar. But these were no ordinary monks. They prayed by day, yes, but they also trained by torchlight, and marched with the skill of seasoned warriors. In white mantles, bearing a red cross, a symbol of martyrdom, of blood offered freely. They soon became more than guardians. They became legends. It was said they could not retreat, that they fought not for life, but for light, that 10 Templars could hold back 100 foes. Whether truth or tale, the fear they inspired was real, but there was something else, something harder to define. An aura, a discipline beyond the blade, a silence that felt deeper, for they spoke little, slept little, owned less. They lived 2 to a horse and fasted often. Their rule, based loosely on that of Saint Benedict, demanded a life of austerity, but also of absolute loyalty. It shaped them, refined them, made them in time both revered and feared. As decades passed, the order swelled. Papal favor flowed freely. Land was granted. Fortresses were raised from the sands of Palestine to the cliffs of Portugal. They were warriors, yes, but also builders, bankers, and brokers of power. Their network stretched across continents. A letter sent from a Templar preceptory in England could be honored in Jerusalem, a primitive but potent form of international banking. Kings borrowed from them. Popes protected them, and yet they answered only to one voice, the Grand Master, and through him God. No king could command them. No bishop could bind them. This was unprecedented and dangerous, because while the world saw knights, some whispered of mystics. While nobles saw assets, others saw alchemy. The red cross became more than a banner. It became a symbol of something veiled. Their silence birthed speculation. Their wealth birthed envy. Their loyalty birthed fear. And still they marched. Who? Were these men, really? To many they were martyrs in waiting. To others they were fanatics. To their enemies they were shadows wrapped in steel. And to those who truly looked, those who studied their patterns, their writings, their chapels shaped in octagons and stars, they were something older, older than Rome, older than Rome, older than Christ. Some believe the Templars found something beneath the Temple Mount, not gold, but wisdom. A scroll, a secret, a name, something that changed them from protectors of pilgrims to guardians of something far more fragile, truth. The title of this chapter calls them Knights of the Morning Star. It is a name both luminous and loaded. In Scripture, the morning star is Christ. In lore, it is Lucifer. In poetry, it is Venus, that first light before dawn, herald of the sun. The Templars rode that line, both saviors and suspected heretics, light bringers or light hiders. It all depends on who you ask. And when by the late 12th century, their power was unmatched. Their numbers had grown into the thousands. They held castles across the Holy Land and across Europe. They brokered diplomacy and directed fleets. They built roads, charted lands, and perhaps most critically, preserved books, ancient books, forbidden books. Some say they were the hidden librarians of Christendom, keeping safe what the Church could not destroy but dared not endorse. And so they became more than men. They became myth. But even myths must end. And already the seeds of suspicion were being sown. How did an order of poor knights become richer than kingdoms? Why were their chapels shaped like stars and circles, not cathedrals? What did they find beneath the earth, and why would they not share? Questions turned to accusations, and as light faded from the Holy Land, darker forces gathered in Europe. But that fall is still to come, for now let us remain in this moment, when the Templars still rode under morning skies, their armor bright, their purpose clear. Let us rest beside them in thought. Feel the thrum of hooves on ancient soil. Hear the banners catching wind. And know that in this chapter of the world there were men who lived not for gold or glory, but for a vow, however flawed, however secret, they believed. And that belief still echoes like the distant sound of horses on stone just before dawn, beneath the golden light of Jerusalem's sun. And beneath the shifting sands of history there lies a place where earth and spirit meet, a place whispered about in hushed tones, where sacred stones hold ancient shadows. The Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif to some is a cradle of faith and mystery alike. Here once stood the Temple of Solomon, the first temple, built by a king whose wisdom echoed through the ages. It was destroyed, rebuilt, transformed, a mosaic of devotion, conflict, and legend. The Templars found their home here, granted the site by King Baldwin II. They settled upon these stones that had seen prophets, priests, and conquerors. The Temple Mount was not just a headquarters. It was a symbol, a key, and perhaps a vault. What secrets did the Templars seek beneath this holy ground? Did they uncover relics from Solomon's time, artifacts imbued with power, or scrolls of forbidden knowledge? Many believe they did. Rumors speak of a darkened chamber below the temple's foundations, a vault hidden deep beneath the earth, sealed by time and faith alike. Some chroniclers hint at the Ark of the Covenant itself, that ancient chest said to hold the presence of God, hidden from invaders and the curious. Others whisper of scrolls, texts older than Christianity, bearing wisdom that could shake kingdoms or destroy empires with a single truth. The Templars, sworn to protect, were entrusted with these secrets. They became not just warriors, but guardians of a legacy too fragile to withstand the light of day. Their chapels on the mount bore the mark of the octagon, a shape echoing the Second Temple's design, a symbol of eternity, transition, and the divine balance. Some say this reflected their sacred mission to guard the threshold between heaven and earth. Yet the more they guarded, the more suspicion grew. A secret so potent must surely breed fear. The Templars' rapid rise, their whispered rituals, their silent vows all stoked the fires of envy and dread among kings and popes. What if they knew too much? What if the knowledge beneath the Temple Mount could topple thrones or rewrite history? The truth is blurred by time, by myths layered upon facts, and by the silence of those who would rather forget. No records detail the exact treasures the Templars kept, and those who asked were silenced, their questions fading like footprints on stone. Still, the idea persists that beneath the stones they walked, the last Templar carried a secret not of gold or jewels, but of wisdom, responsibility, and a burden too great to share. This secret shaped their fate, and the fate of all who came after. For knowledge held in shadow has the power to illuminate or to consume. And so, beneath the Temple Mount, beneath the weight of centuries, we find ourselves standing on the edge of mystery, peering down into darkness, wondering what lies just beyond the light. Tonight, as you rest your head, imagine the stones beneath your own home, what whispers they might hold, what stories they keep safe in silence, and know that some secrets are meant not to be uncovered, but to be carried gently through time, like a candle held in a long night, guiding those who listen with patient hearts. The Knights, Templar born from humble vows and war-torn roads, rose swiftly into a power that stretched beyond their wildest promises. What began as guardians of pilgrims grew into rulers of castles, keepers of gold, and enforcers of a new kind of order. They were men cloaked in white, bearing the red cross. Yet beneath the gleaming armor was an enigma that confounded friends and foes alike. Their rise was meteoric, built on faith. Yes, but also on strategy and an unyielding unity. They mastered the art of war and finance, creating a network as vast as it was secret. Kings sought their counsel. Popes crowned them with blessings. Yet with every step upward, shadows grew longer. In Europe, whispers began to form like a gathering storm. How could an order of monks wield so much power? How did their coffers overflow while nobles bickered and kingdoms bled? And what of their rituals so foreign, so silent, that even those within the church dared not pry too deeply? Power breeds fear, and fear breeds suspicion. The year was 1307, a date etched in history with both dread and finality. On a chilling autumn dawn, King Philip IV of France, deeply indebted and hungry for control, ordered a brutal arrest of the Templars. Knights across the kingdom were seized, accused of heresy, blasphemy, and corruption. The charges were grave and cruel, whispered in dark chambers, and shouted in public squares. Secret rituals, idol worship, and crimes against God were alleged, yet none could produce solid proof. Many scholars believe these accusations were fabricated, weapon forged in desperation to dissolve the order and claim its riches. But the Templars did not fall without resistance. In prisons and dungeons many endured torture rather than betray their vows. Jacques de Molay, their final Grand Master, stood before the court with a calm defiance that echoed through the ages. When sentenced to death by fire, his last words were said to be a curse upon those who betrayed him, popes and kings alike. This was not just a man burning in flame, but an era engulfed in shadow. And yet, despite their downfall, the Templars did not vanish entirely. Their symbols and secrets slipped into legends, their treasures lost to time, their knowledge hidden. And the folds of history dot their fall was a whisper, a shattering silence after a storm of glory. The tale of the Templars is not merely about swords and flames, but about the fragile balance between light and darkness, power and faith. It is a story of men who dared to carry a secret too vast for their time, perhaps too dangerous to reveal as the embers of their order faded. Their legacy passed into shadowed corners, hidden manuscripts, forgotten chapels, and cryptic symbols, waiting patiently for rediscovery. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine the slow fall of an ancient order not in defeat, but in transformation. The echo of their footsteps fading into twilight, but their secret still humming softly beneath the stones. For even in silence, their story lingers waiting for those who listen with quiet hearts. The night is heavy with silence, as if the stars themselves are holding their breath. In the year 1314, the world turned quietly, unaware that a final journey was beginning, one that would carry the last Templar beyond the realm of mortal sight. Jacques de Molay, Grand Master, had been imprisoned, betrayed by kings, and crowned by flames. Yet his story does not end in ashes, for some say he was more than a man, a keeper of truths too profound for history's open pages. Legends tell of a secret passage, a hidden escape from the prisons beneath Paris, a path known only to the bravest or the most faithful. It is said that on the eve of his execution, de Molay vanished into shadow, slipping beyond the watchful eyes of his captors. Some say he fled southward, beneath cloaks of night and whispers of the wind, carrying with him a small chest, a vessel for secrets too dangerous for the world above. His journey was not merely one of flight, but of purpose. From the cold stone of his prison cell to the green forests and misty hills, he moved like a ghost, guided by faith and fear alike. No path was straight, no resting place certain. Each step was weighed with the knowledge that the order he had allied was shattered, but that its legacy must live on, in silence, in secrecy, in shadows, through villages asleep under moonlight, past rivers that murmured old songs. Jacques moved with the quiet determination of a man who carried the last flame. Where others saw darkness, he saw a map of hope, a route drawn by trust, by the memories of brothers who had fallen before Dot. It is in these stories that the line between truth and myth blurs. Did the last Templar truly disappear into the folds of history? Or did he choose a final resting place where his secret could slumber, safe from the greed and fire that had consumed his brethren? Some believe that this last journey led him to a remote chapel, hidden by forest and time, where a simple tomb awaited a stone unmarked by fame or fortune, Only the faint cross of the Order, barely visible beneath centuries of moss. Others whisper that he traveled beyond France, across mountains and seas, finding refuge among those who understood the burden he bore. And still others say he took the secret beneath the Temple Mount, carrying it with him like a sacred ember, until he could pass it on to those worthy. In every telling, there is a sense of reverence, a quiet acknowledgement that some journeys are not about escape, but about preservation. The last Templar was not fleeing death, but embracing a transformation, becoming a guardian of a truth too fragile for the world's bright gaze. As you lay your head tonight, imagine his footsteps soft, deliberate, fading into the night. Hear the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl, and the hush of a world that holds its secrets close. For the last Templar's journey is also yours, to carry the quiet light of mystery, to hold close the whispers beneath the stones, and to dream of truths waiting patiently just beyond the veil of sleep. In the quiet corners of forgotten libraries, beneath layers of dust and silence, there are whispers soft, elusive, like the sigh of a closing book. They speak of a hidden archive, a secret trove guarded by shadows, where the knowledge of the Templars was locked away from prying eyes. This archive was no ordinary collection of parchment and ink. It was a sanctuary of mysteries texts, older than kingdoms, words woven with cryptic symbols, maps drawn in invisible ink, and tales wrapped in allegory that only the initiated could understand. The Templars, scholars as much as soldiers, valued these writings as sacred. More precious than gold, these scrolls held the echoes of ancient wisdom, fragments of knowledge gleaned from far-flung lands and whispered by the wind. Some texts hinted at lost rituals, methods of meditation and prayer, which opened doors not only to the heavens, but to the hidden chambers within the self. Others described the sacred geometry found in their chapels, patterns reflecting the harmony of the cosmos, a language that spoke to the soul's deepest yearnings. But why keep such secrets hidden? Because power, they knew, could be both a gift and a curse. Some knowledge is too potent to be shared indiscriminately. It demands respect, patience, and the quiet understanding that some truth must unfold slowly, like the petals of a moonlit flower. The Forbidden's archive was said to be concealed beneath the stones of Templar strongholds, or hidden inside the carved wooden beams of their chapels. No ordinary key could open it, only symbols of faith, courage, and loyalty. Many have sought it since the Order's fall, historians, treasure hunters, dreamers, but it remains elusive, a secret wrapped in shadows and silence. Within the archive's imagined walls, some believe the last Templar hid his final message. A letter or a map, a testament of faith and warning, meant for those who would come centuries later, seekers of truth with quiet hearts and steady hands. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, picture yourself in that still room, surrounded by ancient scrolls and fading candlelight. Feel the weight of history pressing gently on your shoulders, and hear the soft whisper of pages turning, a melody of secrets calling you deeper, inviting you to listen, to wonder, and to dream. In the quiet spaces between history and legend, there exists a whisper of a cipher, a code so elusive it seems to vanish as soon as it is glimpsed. Like mist slipping through the fingers of dawn, this lost cipher is said to be woven into the very fabric of the Templars' existence, hidden in their symbols, their architecture, their rituals, a secret language meant to protect the deepest truths they carried. Codes and ciphers are not mere puzzles. They are bridges between minds and hearts, vehicles of trust and discretion. For the Templars, whose survival often depended on secrecy, such a cipher was a vital shield. But what did it conceal? Was it a map to hidden treasure? A guide to forbiddance? Knowledge? Or perhaps a key to understanding the divine in a way the world was not yet ready to receive? Throughout Europe and the Holy Land, researchers have sought clues, inscriptions carved in stone, patterns in stained glass, letters embedded in the folds of ancient manuscripts. Each fragment offers a hint, a tantalizing glimpse, but the full message remains just out of reach, a melody unfinished, lingering in the air like a half-remembered dream. Some scholars believe the cipher was designed not merely for secrecy, but as a spiritual exercise of meditation, encoded in symbols meant to awaken the soul's deeper vision. The red cross, the octagon, the pentagram, each shape held layers of meaning, folded within one another like the petals of a sacred flower. Unlocking this cipher, then, is not simply about decoding letters, but about opening a door within a journey inward, as much as outward. Tonight, as your breath slows and your thoughts soften, imagine tracing these symbols with your fingertips, feeling their shapes breathe beneath your skin. Let the mystery of the lost cipher seep gently into your mind, not as a problem to be solved, but as a quiet invitation to wonder. For some secrets are not meant to be unraveled in haste, but savored. Like a soft, lingering note fading into silence. It began on a Friday, a morning like any other, but in the cool hush of October 13th, 1307, a quiet terror crept through the streets of France. Templars, knights, priests, servants of the order, awoke to pounding fists, drawn swords, and parchment sealed by royal hands. In a single breath, they were no longer protectors. They were prisoners. The command had come from King Philip IV of France, a monarch wrapped in silks and debts. To him, the Templars were no longer allies of heaven. They were a bank too rich, a brotherhood too independent, a threat too powerful to ignore. And so he struck. By dawn, hundreds were in chains. The white mantles with red crosses were ripped from shoulders, sullied with spit and suspicion. Cathedrals once blessed with their vows stood silent, their stone hearts echoing with the absence of prayer. Yet it was not death they faced, but something slower, a trial written in fire and fear. Torture turned silence into confession. Hands once folded in prayer were broken beneath wheels. Voices raised in praise cried out in agony, admitting to things no soul should ever speak, worshipping false idols, spitting on the cross, dark rites, secret oaths, hidden sins. But were these truths, or echoes forced from men too weary to resist another night of screams? Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, stood tall before the inquisitors. He denied the charges, then, under torment, confessed. And then, when brought before the world, he took it all back. "I am guilty only of lying to save my life," he said, as though his voice were carved in stone. The Pope, once their protector, did not speak in their defense. The Church turned cold, and the kings sharpened their blades. Years passed. Some Templars vanished into quiet exile. Some rotted in dungeons no light would touch. And some, like de Molay, awaited the Pyre. In 1314, on a small island in the Seine. Jacques de Molay was led to the flames. He did not cry out. He did not beg. Instead, he asked only to face Notre Dame as he burned, not out of fear, but reverence dot, and before the fire consumed him, he spoke words now lost to time, or deliberately hidden. Some say it was a curse, calling down judgment on the king and pope. Some say it was a final truth, a whisper meant for those with ears to hear, and some believe it was silence, a vow kept even unto death. But fire cannot burn everything. It cannot consume the unseen, and though the flames took flesh, the soul of the Templars endured dot and stone symbols, in secret rituals, in the soft hush of candlelit chapels across the world. Their presence flickers still dot, so tonight as your breath deepens and the weight of day dissolves into the hush of sleep, think of the trial written in fire, not as an ending, but as a beginning clothed in smoke. For what burns may rise again, and what falls in silence may someday speak. The fire glowed. Low by the banks of the Seine it crackled, not with fury, but with purpose, its light dancing against stone and water. As the night bent its head in solemn witness, dot at the center stood a man once called master by thousands, now a prisoner with shackled hands and dignity untouched, Jacques de Molay Grand. Master of the Knights Templar was no longer a general or a financier, but a man at the edge of eternity dot, and what he chose to carry in that final hour was not vengeance, but silence. The sky above Paris that March evening hung with a sorrowful hush. No trumpets blared, no judgment thundered, just a murmuring river and the faint rustle of ash in the wind. He had spent 7 years imprisoned, not in chains alone, but in shadows, isolated, interrogated, shamed. His brothers scattered, his order dissolved, and the truth, whatever it was, held close beneath his tongue. There had been opportunities to speak. He could have revealed their codes, named protectors, described rituals, or invented them. He could have struck back with rumor, unleashing chaos on those who betrayed him. But he did not. Instead, he retracted his confession, knowing it would sign his death. And even then, with flames licking at his robe, he did not scream. He looked toward Notre Dame, and beyond it perhaps to something unseen. Witnesses say he spoke, but what were his final words? Some wrote that he summoned the king and the pope to meet him before the judgment of God within a year. And, strangely, both Philip IV and Clement V did indeed die within that time. Others say his last breath was not a curse, but a blessing, a quiet prayer for those who had fallen, and for those who would still carry the burden forward. But most say he said nothing at all dot, that in the hush between flesh and flame, de Molay gave no speech, no cry, only the silence of a man who had lived with a secret too sacred to cast into the mouths of those who thirsted for spectacle. Silence, after all, is not always absence. Sometimes it is protection, a seal, a final act of devotion. What knowledge did he carry? Was it something tangible, a location, a name, a text? Or was it something deeper, a mystery not written on parchment, but on the soul? In the decades that followed, the Church would denounce its own trial, the accusations false, the confessions coerced, the order perhaps unjustly destroyed, and yet the silence endured. In churches whose architecture echoed Templar geometry, in orders and brotherhoods whose symbols bore the faint imprint of a red cross, and whispers passed from monk to mason, from scholar to sailor. Some believe that Demale chose silence because he knew the world wasn't ready, that what he protected was not treasure, but transformation, an idea, a path, something eternal and perilous in the wrong hands. And so his silence became a monument. Not carved in stone, but in memory. You will not find his tomb. No grand statue bears his face, but still he lingers in questions never fully answered, in maps with gaps, and rituals whose meanings have long since blurred. Tonight, imagine him not as a burning figure, but as a man in prayer, his hands steady, his breath slow, his gaze turned inward to the sacred place where all truth waits in patient, luminous quiet. Close your eyes now and follow him there, not to fire, but to stillness. To the Grand Master's final silence. The rose line runs like a quiet river beneath stone, not marked on any official map, and yet it lies at the heart of churches, cathedrals, and mystery, a thread of light and geometry that weaves through the sacred places of Europe, older than kings, perhaps older than memory. It is not merely a line. It is an idea of balance, of harmony, of secret knowledge, buried in architecture. And beneath it, ashes. Some say that the great cathedrals of France, especially Saint Sulpice and Notre Dame in Paris, were built atop ancient lines of power, not just religious, but energetic, symbolic, cosmic. The rose line, as some call it, is thought to trace the meridian once used before the Greenwich Standard, a line aligned with celestial bodies, with solstices and equinoxes, with sacred mathematics understood by the ancients. The Templars knew this line. They built along it, prayed along it, buried their secrets in the stone beneath it. Within these walls, sunlight falls just so through the rose window, casting circular halos on the floor. Stained glass whispers stories in color. Chiseled saints peer down from columns, not merely decorative, but deliberate. And below it all, beneath centuries of faith and silence, are whispers of something more. Ashes, not only of burned bodies, but of burned truths. The Church has long denied any Templar presence in these sacred places, but symbols remain half erased, half hidden, a cross where no cross should be, an 8-pointed star tucked in a corner arch, knights carved among saints, always watching, always silent. To those who know how to see, these are not accidents. They are BREADCRUMBS. So what lies beneath the rose line? Not treasure in the way men understand gold, but something far more precious, an inheritance of knowledge preserved not in vaults, but in architecture, in light, in sacred proportion. It is said that beneath certain altars, sealed crypts contain urns of ash, not from martyrs or saints, but from scrolls too dangerous to remain whole. Templar writings, charred not by accident, but by intent, protected in destruction, preserved by loss. And there is another tale of a chamber beneath the nave of an old cathedral, now close to all, where a single stone bears no name. Pilgrims speak of standing near it and feeling time bend, of hearing faint hymns from a choir, long turned to dust, of dreams that follow them home, dreams of stars turning above sacred land, of circles drawn in sand, and a voice saying, "Remember the line." It is no wonder the Templars knew it well. Their rule spoke often of discipline, of geometry, of light. Their chapels were round for a reason. Their ceremonies echoed older rites. rites that observe the movement of planets, the silence between equinox and solstice. The rose line was not just a path, it was a language, and those who built upon it were writing prayers in stone dot to stand in such a place, where light filters through rose-colored glass, where columns align not by accident, but by ancient design, as to feel the presence of something vast yet intimate, something buried but not lost. The Templars may be gone, their bodies turned to ash, their order dissolved, but beneath this line they left echoes, sacred geometry, whispers in Latin, symbols so simple they vanish when seen too directly, like truth itself. Tonight, let your breath slow, as if you were standing in one of those great cathedrals. Let the hush wrap around you like candlelight. Close your eyes and walk the rose line in your mind, your bare feet tracing the path of stars long fallen. And if you feel something stir beneath the stone, a warmth, a hum, a sense of being watched, it is not fear, but it is memory, yours or theirs, and in that memory the ashes of forgotten things still glow faintly, waiting quietly for the dreamer to pass by. When the Templar Order fell beneath the heavy hand of kings and popes, its members, scattered like leaves caught in a restless wind, no longer knights of a sacred brotherhood, they became wanderers, exiles in a world that had turned its back on them. From the stone fortresses of Acre to the quiet hills of Scotland, their footsteps traced paths through hidden valleys and forgotten towns, carrying with them fragments of a faith once blazing, now reduced to flickering embers in the dark. Exile is not merely a physical journey. It is a quiet unraveling of identity, a slow peeling away of the roles and robes once worn with pride. For the Templars, it was a severing from their sacred mission, a loss both external and deeply internal. Yet, even in displacement, the echoes of their past lingered in whispered prayers, in secret meetings behind closed doors, in symbols sketched hastily in the margins of manuscripts. Some found refuge in the far corners of Europe, in monasteries willing to shield them from inquisitors' eyes. Others vanished into the myth and shadow of legend, becoming the source of tales whispered by firelight, guardians of hidden knowledge, protectors of sacred relics. In Scotland, for instance, some say the Templars found a new home, their heraldry, blending with ancient clans, their customs weaving into local traditions. The Red Cross faded into tartan patterns, but the spirit of the brotherhood endured. The exile was not only a retreat, but a transformation. Cast out from their temples, the Templars became something else, keepers of mystery rather than knights of the battlefield. Their quest turned inward as much as outward, searching for meaning beyond sword and shield. Echoes of the Order's influence ripple through history, surfacing in unexpected places, in the founding myths of secret societies, in the coded symbols of Renaissance art, in the architecture of chapels hidden within castles. The Templars' exile became a new beginning, their scattered whispers forming a subtle network of remembrance. Even today, some believe the descendants of the Templars walk among us, bearing a legacy of quiet vigilance and deep knowledge. Their story is not just of loss, but of resilience, a testament to the endurance of faith under the weight of silence. Tonight, as you close your eyes and let your mind drift, imagine those exiled knights, not broken or defeated, but transformed, carrying their sacred light like a flickering flame into the shadows of the world. where history remembers only the faintest glimmers. Hidden beneath layers of stone and time, the secret chapels of the Templars whisper their stories in shadows and light, waiting patiently for discovery. These are places where faith and secrecy intertwine, small sanctuaries carved into hillsides, cryptic rooms tucked beneath castles, chapels shielded by forests and silence. Within their walls the air still holds the scent of ancient incense, the faint echo of whispered prayers, and the soft glow of candle flames flickering against stone. These chapels were not merely places of worship, but sanctuaries of knowledge, havens where the Templars guarded sacred relics, practiced rituals hidden from inquisitive eyes, and preserved secrets too perilous for the outside world. Their architecture often hides subtle clues, arches formed in symbolic shapes, carvings of mysterious symbols, and stained glass that tells stories not found in Scripture. Some chapels are circular, a deliberate echo of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, reflecting the Templars' deep connection to the Holy Land. Others feature labyrinthine passages, designed both to protect and to initiate, leading the faithful into deeper states of reflection. And mystery in these spaces, the boundary between the earthly and the divine blurs. Each stone a prayer, each shadow a guardian. Across Europe, from the rolling hills of France to the rugged coasts of Portugal, these secret chapels survive in quiet anonymity, often disguised as humble parish churches or forgotten ruins. Their presence is known only to those who listen carefully. Within their sacred geometry, one finds encoded the language of the order symbols like the octagram, the pentagram, and the cross, potent, woven together to protect and conceal. Every carving is a message, every hidden alcove a refuge for wisdom. The chapels also serve as places of refuge during the darkest times, where the Templars could gather away from prying eyes to heal, to pray, and to plan. These spaces became a physical testament to resilience, fortresses of faith amid persecution. As night deepens and your breathing slows, imagine yourself stepping softly into one of these chapels. Feel the cool stone beneath your fingertips, the hush of centuries pressing gently around you. In the quiet, listen for the soft chant of monks long gone, the lingering touch of hands that crafted every curve and corner, and the sacred silence where secrets still sleep. Though hidden, these chapels are not lost. They are places where history breathes softly, inviting you to remember the sacredness of quiet, the power of faith preserved in shadow, and in this remembrance, may you find peace, a sanctuary of your own in the vast, unfolding mystery of the night. There are maps drawn in ink, and then there are maps drawn in silence. The Templars are said to have kept both. The first were ordinary, roads, borders, rivers, but the second was hidden, layered beneath geometry and ritual, a map of knowledge, not terrain. This was not a map for travelers, but for seekers, those who searched not for land or gold, but for understanding. It pointed not to cities or treasure chests, but to sacred sites, places where the divine touched the earth and whisper, where the old knowledge still lingered like the fragrance of incense long after the flame, according to whispers left behind in forgotten scrolls and carved symbols. This hidden map wove together temples, chapels, and star lines, connecting distant lands through something older than empire alignment. The Templars had seen the ruins of Egypt and the columns of Greece. They had knelt at the Holy Sepulchre and gazed at stars from the hills of Jerusalem. They understood that the world spoke in patterns, and so they listened. Some believe the Templar map was a constellation drawn upon the earth, linking cathedrals, fortresses, wells, and groves into a great unseen network. Each place chosen not at random, but with precision and prayer. Rosslyn Chapel, Tomar in Portugal, Chartres in France, each a point of energy, each a fragment of the whole. The lines between them are not straight, but harmonic. They follow the rhythm of the stars, the ancient breath of the cosmos. This was a map of meaning, not distance, where the journey itself awakened something sleeping within the Sioux. El Legend says that pieces of the map were encoded in manuscripts, passed in secret, and protected at great cost. Others claim the map is hidden in plain sight, in stained glass, in floor mosaics, in the proportions of sacred buildings, not meant to be unfolded, but awakened. And perhaps it is not a single map at all, but many, each person carrying their own piece. And only when gathered in harmony can the path be truly seen. This is the Templar way, to veil great truths in quiet symbols, waiting for the moment when they are needed most. And so the hidden map may still be with us, not in a museum case, but in the way a chapel window aligns with the morning sun, in the curve of an arch that matches a lunar cycle, in the compass rose carved into stone, its points not just north, but inward. It is a map that listens to the stars and teaches us to listen to. Tonight, as you lie beneath your own sky, imagine that you are holding a corner of this map, not paper, but memory. Feel its shape in your hands, soft and luminous. Let it guide you through forgotten paths and luminous thoughts, not toward a destination, but toward understanding. For some maps do not lead to treasure, but to truth, and the journey itself is the key. Somewhere between dream and memory, there lingers the idea of a library not built of wood and stone, but of silence and secrecy. It has no catalogue, no grand staircase, no names etched in marble. Its doors open only to those who do not seek it directly. It is called by many names: the invisible archive, the library beneath the earth, the vault of the Templars, but most simply, the library that never was. This is the place scholars whisper about in corners of candle-lit rooms, where words like forbidden, lost, and unrecorded drift like dust across old pages. Here, it is said, the Templars stored what could not be entrusted to the world. Not merely treasure, but ideas. These were no ordinary books. They were texts gathered from the furthest reaches of known civilization, scrolls rescued from burning temples, manuscripts smuggled from fallen cities, teachings passed down in secret lineages. Writings from Alexandria, from Babylon, from desert, monasteries carved into cliff faces, thoughts too ancient for the church, too free for kings. Some tell of gospels never canonized, bearing visions of a Christ not as ruler, but as mystic. Others speak of alchemical treatises, of maps written in code, of sacred geometry passed down from stonemason to star reader. And in the deepest shelves, writings even older, traced back to Atlantis, perhaps, or to cultures that left behind only symbols carved in stone. The library that never was is said to be both nowhere and everywhere. Some claim it lies beneath the Temple Mount, a chamber sealed by geometry and guarded by silence. Others point to the catacombs beneath Rosslyn Chapel or to the cliffs of southern France, where Cathar mystics once hid relics in caves of wind and limestone. Few believe the library was never a place at all, but a network, a chain of minds, each holding a chapter, passing it on in ciphered whispers and sacred trust. And so it vanished, or perhaps it transformed, not lost to fire, but to forgetting, a deliberate disappearance, so the knowledge would not be misused. What kind of knowledge is so powerful that even its guardians chose silence? Not spells or incantations, but understandings, truths about the soul, the cosmos, the source of being, ideas that can heal or unravel, the kind of knowledge that does not tell you what to believe, but asks you who you are. The Templars, if the legends are true, preserve this knowledge not to rule the world, but to protect it from itself. They knew that revelation must arrive gently, not as a sword, but as a seed, and so they hid their garden, watered it in secret, and left behind clues for those who would come in humility. Today we find traces, a line in a medieval manuscript, a diagram buried in the margins of an old map, a symbol carved in a forgotten chapel column, out of place, and yet precisely placed. These are the echoes, the footnotes of a library that officially never existed, yet somehow breathes beneath the skin of time. And so, tonight, as your body settles and the stillness deepens, let yourself enter this hidden archive in your dreams. Feel the cool stone beneath your feet. Smell the scent of ink, wax, and parchment. Run your hand along a spine that has waited 100 lifetimes to be touched. Let it open, not with noise, but with knowing. And read not with your eyes, but with your breath, because the library that never was is not entirely gone. It lives in those who still remember how to listen. The sword may have gleamed in sunlight, but the true strength of the Templars was forged elsewhere, not in iron, but in silence. It was not their armor that made them fearsome, but their discipline. Their minds were trained not only to fight, but to hold. To hold secrets, to hold oaths, to hold themselves still, even when the world around them burned. The Templar mind was a quiet forge. Every day began in prayer, not as ritual, but as rhythm. Rose before light, spoke little, and fasted often. They memorized scripture, but also signs, numbers, sacred measures. Geometry was not mathematics alone, it was contemplation. It was how the divine could be seen in the shape of a chapel or the arc of a staircase. They believed in balance between the world of the body and the world of the spirit. A knight of the temple was not trained only to wield a blade, but to be the blade sharpened in stillness, honed through humility. Their rule, inspired by Saint Benedict and Cistercian tradition, was austere. Sleep was short, speech was limited. Every gesture had meaning. Every silence had weight. They practiced what some now call active meditation, contemplation through movement, prayers through breath, training not as repetition, but as alignment. They learned to hold a single thought like a candle in wind, to resist temptation not with denial, but with detachment. And above all, they were taught to listen. To God, yes, but also to the world, to their brothers, to the invisible geometry that stitched the sacred into the ordinary. This is what made them so enduring. Not just what they believed, but how they believed. Their minds became vessels, Not for conquest, but for clarity, Dot. That's why so many of their enemies feared them. Not for their weapons, but for their calm. They did not flinch. They did not rage. Even in death, they did not break. And perhaps that is the secret that survived. Not a relic, not a scroll, but a way of being, a mind trained to move with purpose and to rest with intention, a mind that saw both heaven and earth in the pattern of falling leaves and the design of a chapel window, a mind shaped not by power, but by presence. Tonight, as the stillness deepens around you, let your thoughts slow in their rhythm. Let the noise fall away like a knight laying down his sword at dusk. Breathe in the quiet the Templars once knew, a silence not empty, but full of listening. And in that silence let your own mind become a sanctuary, not to store secrets, but to hold peace. Dot, like the Templar mind, unshaken, watchful, and quietly aware of something greater, just beyond the veil of sight. Ram, the eternal city, was a beacon that drew the Templars like moths to a sacred flame. Its stones whispered of empire and eternity, of faith carved deep into marble and mortar. But Rome was more than a city of power. It was a place of dreams and shadows, where the sacred and the profane danced in delicate balance. For the Templars, Rome represented both a beginning and an end. It was the seat of the Church, where the Pope's voice echoed with divine authority, and yet it was also a place where secrets hid in the labyrinth of streets and basilicas. They dreamed of Rome not just as a capital, but as a symbol, a city, where the eternal and the temporal met. Dot in the quiet corners of ancient churches. Behind frescoes faded by time, the Templars left traces of their presence, symbols woven into stone, carvings almost imperceptible, like echoes of prayers spoken. Under breath, Rome held relics of saints and martyrs, some guarded fiercely, others lost to the ages. The Templars believed these relics carried power, not of conquest, but of connection, threads linking the human and the divine. Their dreams were filled with visions of pilgrimage, a journey inward as much as outward, toward a city that was as much a state of grace as a place on a map. The Templars' presence in Rome was subtle, sometimes welcomed, sometimes watched warily. They sought not to dominate, but to understand, to listen to the city's heartbeat, to trace its veins of faith and history. Dot in their dreams. Rome was a mosaic, each stone a story, each shadow a secret, each light a promise waiting to be fulfilled. Dot, as night falls and the city sleeps, imagine wandering through Rome's silent streets, where the Templars once walked softly, their steps a quiet prayer upon ancient cobblestones. Dot, feel the weight of centuries settle around you, the breath of history mingling with the night air, and the faint shimmer of something eternal. Dot, in the dreams of the eternal city, we find not just the past, but a mirror of our own journey toward meaning, mystery, and the sacred light that shines beyond the reach of time. That an oath is more than words spoken in the air. It is a breath held, a heart sealed, a soul bound in silent promise. For the Templars, their vows were the foundation of everything, a sacred pact woven with threads of loyalty, faith, and sacrifice. The final oath was not just a ceremony, but a passage, a moment when a man stepped beyond himself into a new existence. Dot, to swear the final oath was to embrace a life of discipline and devotion, to surrender personal will to a higher cause and to accept the shadows that came with such a path. It was an act of courage, for it marked the end of the known and the beginning of a journey into mystery. The ceremony was simple yet profound. In a quiet chapel lit by the soft flicker of candles, a knight knelt before the Grand Master, his head bowed in humility. His hands, once weapons, were now instruments of service. His sword, a symbol not of conquest, but of protection. The words spoken were ancient echoes of vows whispered in Jerusalem and Acre, carried across deserts and seas, to defend the innocent, to uphold justice, to guard the secrets entrusted to the Order, to live and die as a brother. But within this solemn pledge lay a deeper truth, the understanding that the Templars' path was one of paradox. They were warriors and monks, prisoners and pilgrims, bearers of light and keepers of shadow. Each oath carried the weight of that duality, a balance of strength and surrender. The final oath was also a promise to hold silence, to carry secrets that could unravel kingdoms or ignite revolutions. This silence was a cloak not just for protection, but for preservation, a quiet trust that what was hidden would remain safe until the world was ready to receive it. And so, when the final words were spoken, and the knight rose anew, he was not just a soldier, he was a guardian of mysteries. His life was no longer his own, but a thread in a vast tapestry woven by faith, courage, and quiet devotion. Tonight, as your eyelids grow heavy, let the weight of this final oath settle. Softly over you. Feel the solemn peace that comes with surrender, not defeat, but the quiet strength of knowing you belong to something greater. Like the last Templar. May you find rest in your promise and courage in your silence. Beneath the stones of ancient places, beneath the footsteps of centuries, there lies a world unseen, a whisper beneath the weight of stone. The Templars knew these echoes well. They built their sanctuaries upon foundations older than memory, upon secrets layered deep beneath walls and earth. These stones remember not just the weight of armies or the prayers of monks, but the pulse of hidden chambers, the breath of sealed vaults, the quiet promise of what lies buried. The earth beneath Templar sites holds more than history, it holds possibility. Caverns carved with cryptic symbols, tunnels winding like veins beneath cathedrals, and crypts where silence sleeps in shadow. Each echo beneath stone is a fragment of a story too fragile for the light of day. Archaeologists have brushed dust off ancient bricks, unearthed relics, and mapped subterranean labyrinths, yet the full tale remains just out of reach. What was hidden below was meant to be hidden, not for eternity, but until the moment was right. Within these depths, some believe, rest the final keepsakes of the Templar Order, not only gold or jewels, but texts written on fragile parchment, artifacts inscribed with symbols of power and protection. Their silence guards truths lost to time, waiting for gentle hands to uncover them. These echoes beneath the stone are also echoes within us, reminders that beneath our own surface, beneath the daily noise, there are depths still unexplored. Like the Templars, we carry hidden chambers in our hearts, places of quiet strength and whispered wisdom. Tonight, as the world outside grows still, imagine walking softly through these ancient halls beneath stone, feeling the cool touch of history and the weight of secrets resting in shadow. Let the echoes lull you, not with loud stories, but with the quiet song of waiting. and the gentle promise of discovery. In this calm, beneath the stone, may you find rest, may you find peace, and may your dreams carry you to the secret places where truth sleeps, waiting to be gently awakened. Legacies are often spoken loudly, etched in stone, carved in history books, told through triumphs and conquests. But some legacies whisper, they glide softly through time, hidden in quiet moments and gentle acts. The Templars left behind such a whispered legacy, not shouted in crowds, but carried in silence. Their true inheritance was not land, gold, or power, but something far more elusive, a seed planted deep in the soil of faith and mystery. It is a legacy carried not by kings or armies, but by those who listen. Whispers travel in the rustle of ancient manuscripts, in the delicate carvings of forgotten chapels, in the faintest hint of a symbol etched on weathered stone. They linger in the stories told around fires, passed from one generation to the next, often half forgotten, yet always alive. This whispered legacy speaks of courage found in silence, of knowledge protected by trust, and of light hidden beneath shadow. It reminds us that some truths are too precious for loud proclamation, that the most profound understandings arrive softly, like dawn's first light. The Templars' whispered legacy is also a call, an invitation to seek, to question, to hold space for mystery. It asks us to remember that the past is not only what is written, but what is felt between the lines, the pauses, the silences, the quiet breath before a prayer. Tonight, as your eyes grow heavy and the world fades away, listen for that whispered. It may come as a gentle stirring in your thoughts, a flicker of insight in your dreams, or the soft echo of a story waiting to be told. Let this whispered legacy settle like a balm, a quiet companion to your rest. For even in silence there is presence. Even in darkness there is light. And in the softest whisper, sometimes we find the greatest truth. As twilight falls on the story of the last Templar, there remains a final light, a flicker that has survived through centuries of shadow and silence. This last light is not a flame of war, nor a beacon of conquest, but a quiet glow of endurance. It is the light of memory, held gently in the hearts of those who still remember. A light kindled by faith, courage, and whispered truth, passed like a sacred torch from one soul to another. The last Templar carried this light within himself, through trials that would have extinguished lesser fires. He bore the weight of secrets and oaths, yet never allowed the light to dim. In that steadfast glow lies the essence of his legacy. Not the end, but a beginning. This light shines softly in the quiet moments, in the pause between breaths, in the calm after the storm, in the gentle closing of weary eyes. It invites us to hold fast to what is true, to embrace both shadow and light, and to walk forward with steady hearts. Though the Templar Order was dissolved, and their castles crumbled into dust, their last light continues to shine, in hidden places, in secret prayers, and the pulse of history itself. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, imagine this last light settling around you, a warm glow that neither fades nor flickers, but remains constant and calm. Let it cradle your thoughts, ease your worries, and guide you gently into dreams. May the last light remind you that even in darkness there is hope. Even in endings there is a quiet promise of dawn, and as sleep takes you softly, may you carry this light within, a steady flame in the quiet night. Beneath the clamor of history's grand tales, there lies a veil thin and delicate woven from threads of silence. This veil hides as much as it reveals, guarding the mysteries the last Templar carried with him into shadow and obscurity. Silence is not emptiness. It is a presence, a breath held between moments, a space where the unseen whispers dot. For the Templars, silence was sacred, not merely the absence of sound, but a protective cloak for truths too fragile for daylight. Behind closed doors and beneath stone arches, they swore to keep secrets wrapped in quiet devotion, sealed with oaths stronger than steel. This veil of silence shaped their lives, and shaped the legacy they left behind. To pass beneath this veil is to enter a realm where time slows, where words fall away and only the soft pulse of memory remains. It invites us to listen, not with ears, but with the heart's stillness. In this silence, stories take new form. The clashing of swords softens to echoes, and the shadows lengthen into gentle shapes. Here, the last Templar's journey becomes a meditation, an unfolding mystery held tenderly in the dark. Tonight, as the world quiets around you, allow the veil of silence to settle gently, drawing you inward. Feel the calm deepening, the peaceful pause before sleep, and the comforting weight of secrets kept safe. May this veil wrap around your thoughts, softening the edges of the day and guiding you toward a restful night, where mystery and peace entwine. Amid the shadows where secrets dwell, there flickers a hidden flame, small, steadfast, and quietly alive. This flame is not the blaze of battle or glory, but a gentle light that endures beneath layers of time and silence. For the last Templar, this flame was a symbol of hope, a quiet ember held close in moments of darkness. It was the spark of faith that refused to be extinguished, even when the world seemed intent on snuffing it out. The hidden flame burns not only in ancient chambers, but in hearts across generations, in those who seek truth beyond surface, and in those who protect what is sacred. Unseen. This flame is warmth and illumination, a guide through shadowed paths, a reminder that light exists even where it is least expected. The Templars understood this well. Their strength was not only in sword or shield, but in this inner light, quiet, steady, unyielding. As the world changed, as empires rose and fell, the hidden flame remained, passed down like a secret gift, waiting for the right hands to carry it forward. Tonight, as you settle into stillness, imagine the hidden flame glowing softly within you. Feel its gentle warmth spread through your thoughts, softening the day's edges and lighting the way to peaceful rest. May this hidden flame be a quiet companion, a source of calm and courage, guiding you gently into the embrace of sleep. And may you wake renewed, carrying its light with you, soft, steady, eternal. In the stillness between moments, there are guardians, not of swords or shields, but of quiet keepers of silence and calm. The last Templar was among them, a sentinel standing watch not just over secrets, but over the sacred hush where truth softly sleeps. These guardians move unseen, their strength woven from patience, their power from gentle persistence. They hold space for mystery, protect places where light and shadow blend, and honor the soft boundaries between known and unknown. To be a guardian of the quiet is to listen deeply to the whispers beneath words, to the stories told in silence, to the pulse of the world beneath its noise. The Templars were such guardians, not just in battle, but in their vow to safeguard the hidden, the sacred, the still. Their watch was not always visible, but it was. Steadfast, a quiet pulse beneath the chaos of history, a presence felt only by those who dared to pause. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, imagine yourself as one of these guardians, holding the quiet gently in your hands, cradling the stillness within your heart. Feel the calm deepen around you, a protective cloak woven of silence and grace. May you find peace in this quiet guardianship, a sanctuary within your mind where dreams flow softly and the world slows to a gentle rhythm. And may the last Templar's watch inspire you to cherish silence, to honor mystery, and to rest deeply in the gentle embrace of the night. Awakening does not always roar like thunder. Sometimes it comes as a whisper, a soft unfolding, a delicate stirring within the depths of silence. For the last Templar, the quiet awakening was a moment suspended between shadow and light, a gentle recognition of the path walked and the path yet to come. In the stillness of night, when the world is hushed and breath slows, awakenings arise not with urgency, but with patient grace. They bloom like the first light of dawn, soft and sure, casting a tender glow across the heart. This awakening is both an ending and a beginning, the closing of one chapter, and the opening of another held in the gentle balance of time. The Templar's journey, though marked by trials and silence, was never truly over. Within the quiet awakening lies the promise of renewal, a return to light after darkness, a soft illumination of the soul's deeper truths. It is a call to listen, to feel, to trust the unfolding rhythm of life. Tonight, as sleep draws near, embrace this quiet awakening. Let it seep into your dreams, carrying you gently across the threshold toward rest and renewal. May you awaken softly, with peace held close, and the steady light of the hidden flame guiding your way. In this calm, may you find yourself whole, serene and ready for the new day. In the end, all journeys return to stillness, not the stillness of absence, but the stillness of completion, where the breath settles, the burdens fall away, and the soul finds peace. This is eternal rest, not an end, but a gentle merging with silence, with memory, with all that is. The last Templar, wherever he lies, has long since faded into the folds of time. His name may be forgotten, his body turned to dust, but his rest is not a vanishing, it is a becoming. He became the echo in stone halls, the hush in sacred chapels, the whisper between stars, and the calm that waits in the heart of night. Eternal rest is not about forgetting. It is about remembering differently, not through words or statues, but through feeling, a quiet knowing that something once sacred still breathes beneath the surface of things. Perhaps the last Templar was buried in a chapel, lost to moss and ivy, a simple stone above him, no name carved, only a symbol, a cross, or a circle, or perhaps nothing at all, because those who truly carry the eternal do not need to be found. They are already everywhere. We carry them in the silence we honor, in the peace we seek, in the light we pass quietly from one soul to another. Now, as your own breath slows, as the soft dark draws near, let this final chapter settle gently over you like a cloak of comfort. There is nothing more to seek tonight, no riddles left to solve, only rest. Let the story drift into stillness, like a candle slowly dimming after fulfilling its gentle purpose. You have walked beside the last Templar, through fire and exile, through silence and symbols, through mystery and light. And now, as he did, you arrive at the end of the path. But this end is no farewell. It is a return to softness, to stillness, to the sacred hush where all things come to rest. Tonight, may you sleep deeply, knowing that some truths live not in answers, but in presence. May your dreams carry you through quiet fields of light, beneath vaulted skies, past ancient chapels, and into peace beyond knowing. May you rest not just for a night, but in spirit calm, whole, and gently held in the arms of eternity.